Hello, everyone, and welcome. Coming to you today with a short rundown of 7.2, The Road to Tomb. With patch 7.2 in full swing, we have a lot on our plates right now. The AP grind has begun once again, with people charging ahead with their artifact weapons to get as strong as possible. We've got the buildings on the Broken Shore slowly creeping towards completion. The Mage Tower is back on the rise again after its short hiatus, so it looks like people are still eager to get another crack at their artifact challenges. A lot of this video will be discussing things you can be doing during the build-up towards Tomb of Sargeras, as we float on what is surely the last month or three of Nighthold raiding. A lot of this will be geared towards raid preparedness going into Tomb, but that isn't to say there won't be a lot of content in this video geared towards you solo heroes out there, so please stay tuned. For those of you who'd like to skip around, the links will be in the description to specific content of interest. The currently active building on North American Realms is the Nether Disruptor. This is important for a few reasons, namely the world bosses, which will be active during the 3 days following the completion of the Nether Disruptor, not the Mage Tower. I am not yet sure how the rotation for the world bosses will work, but it seems as if we only get one boss per round of the Nether Disruptor. However, the new world bosses do drop 890 plus gear, which is really significant because this is going to be equivalent to heroic Nighthold gear. Those of you who are trying to get a leg up on the artifact challenge quest that's coming back up with the Mage Tower, and you can't do those high-level mythic pluses or get into a heroic Nighthold group that can clear the instance without paying, you guys can seek some better gear here. Sadly, a lot of this gear isn't great for Unholy, but if you're replacing something much lower, the strength can definitely be a boon. But if you're not sure if it's an upgrade, definitely sim. And that will help you figure out whether or not it's useful to you or not. For those of you who are seeking to turn to Frost, there's quite a few pieces on Maleficus that are good. Hopefully on the next round of the Nether Disruptor, you'll also see Savash, who carries the Blast Radius relic, which is really good. As for the unstable nether portals that are part of this particular building, the creatures that spawn from them drop Dauntless gear, some Sentinax beacons, and a small amount of Legion Fall resources, and some nether shards. But you have to spend nether shards to open the portals using your Nether Disruptor item, so likely the trade-off is not very much worth the effort, unless you're trying to gear up a new tomb. The tertiary benefit of the Nether Disruptor, in fact, is rather finicky at best, and a poor bet at worst. Unlike the Mage Tower's knowledgeable buff, which would proc for you while you're doing things you would normally do, Fate Smiles Upon You is kind of a gamble, and a really steep one if you ask me. As you all know, you only get 3 Seals of Broken Fate per week, and wagering one on the off chance you might get it refunded is kind of a large and, dare I say, unnecessary risk. Upcoming, we also have the Command Center, which was completed on EU Realms actually yesterday or today, which brings with it some new and hopefully interesting world quests. I'm curious what this champion mission is all about. It's slated to only be for artifact power, which is okay. Artifact power is always good to come by if you don't have to do a lot of work. And the garrison missions, or the class hall missions as they're called now, are definitely not a lot of work for a quick reward. You also get 10% passive stats along with the Command Center, which is kind of meager compared to some of the buffs that you can get from the statues on the Broken Isles, but I guess it wasn't meant to be overwhelmingly strong either. I assume it applies no matter where you are in the Broken Isles, unlike those statue buffs. As for Tomb itself, so far, I'm pretty shaken at the gear outlook for Tomb for Unholy. I've been a faithful Unholy DK since day 1 of Legion, and I had some big hopes that Unholy could get at least, continue to be competitive in this upcoming raid. But the available gear speaks really strongly to Frost, or if you're staying Unholy, maybe a reversion to Castigator, using Bursting Swords and Infected Claws. But I've heard Clawing Shadows builds can be strong as well. I fear the lack of mastery places us in a really precarious position, though, in terms of consistency. This is pure speculation on my part, though. A lot of patterns lead me in that direction, like the Mastery Light or even Devoid Gear of Tomb. It's fairly heavy on crit across the board. Even the tier pieces are really light on Mastery overall. There are no major tier pieces that have Mastery on them. we'll likely want to use the chest, the cape, the shoulders, the legs from tier 20, and hang on to the tier helm and maybe the gloves from tier 19 if you can get them at a high Titan Forge. Useful mastery pieces to look out for the remaining slots. You're going to want the Shiver Sleet Waistguard from Harjaton, the Iron Ballast Sabatons from Mistress Azine, the Locket of Splintered Souls from the Desolate Host, the Band of Rescinded Truths from Maiden of Vigilance. If you don't have the Instructor's 4th lesson yet and you need some bracers, the Maiden of Vigilance also drops the Van Braces of Resolute Justice for some mastery, which is really good. So be on the lookout for those things, guys. There's still a lot of time before Tomb for things like set bonuses to change, so hopefully we'll get some moves for the better. There's still very little information as to whether 7.2.5 will drop prior to Tomb opening, but we'll be on the lookout. As always, and this applies to everyone, not just my fellow DKs, Sims will help you determine what's best for you based on the gear you already have. If you're not used to using SimCraft, there are resources to help you with that. Check out your class Discords, guys. One other note, as of this video, there are still no fixes to the bugs with the Fell Explosives affix. They are still immune to some single target abilities, namely Clawing Shadows if you're Unholy. Whether Blizzard will fix this in the near future or not, one can only imagine. But for now, you'll have to ping Fell Explosives with Death Coil if you're caught at a distance. If you want to re-roll, at least between specs, now is probably the time to do that. There's millions of AP up for grabs in most areas of the game, and relinquished tokens offer you the ability to obtain gear from any source in the game at 880. That includes the Arcano Crystal, trinkets out of Nighthold, all sorts of great stuff. So this is also another way of gearing up for your artifact challenge as well, like I mentioned earlier. One important thing not to overlook is that the Mythic Zeros give a lot more aggregated AP than the Mythic Pluses. For a 30-minute Vault 8, I got about 900k AP from the ending chest, but you get about 500 to 600 per boss on Mythic Zero, and there are 5 bosses at least in Vault, so that would have been about 3 million AP there, instead of the 900k that I got from the Mythic Plus. So a lot of the non-repeatable content is going to be more lucrative in terms of AP than the repeatable stuff. If you're re-rolling, make sure you change your loot specs so you get the right legendaries. Make sure you're checking that out. Use your relinquished tokens in the right loot specs so you're getting the right gear that you want for the right specs. Most of the time this is largely irrelevant. This mainly applies to relics and things like trinkets. Or if you're a class that uses certain types of trinkets over others, stuff like that. If you're starting over with a new class, and you already had a main, gear should be pretty easy to get. Set max farming will take you a long way, and you can almost instantly ready Artifact Knowledge 26 on your alt using the compendium books as well as the instant buys to 25 now in this post 7.2 environment. Artifact Knowledge 26 is instant as well, so you'll have a nice boost right there, and you'll be able to kind of breeze through the first 35 levels. As for Artifact Knowledge, with that system kind of in place again, I've begun to take a really measured approach to how I garner my artifact power, playing around the artifact knowledge cycle, trying to maximize my weekly gains, holding on to emissaries for 2 days or so prior to a new research level, try to time your AP missions to come in either right before or right after. That way you can kind of hang on to them until you get that new artifact knowledge research level and you get a little bit more AP that way. I feel like that helps give a lot of structure to some more healthy play patterns that aren't just play all the time. But it also keeps you at a steady pace in terms of your artifact power gains, and kind of a good rule of thumb is that if it's a weekly goal and you can, in your next levels within the reset, definitely may be worthwhile to hold off until it does complete. There have been a few updates rolling around the interwebs regarding the next major patch, 7.2.5, which is on the horizon somewhere. So far, most of the communication has been regarding tank balance, which is curious, as we've seen a lot of controversy over the value of magic damage mitigation throughout Nighthold. Features a lot of magic damage to tanks, and it's really made bears kind of absolute monsters. So bears are losing their Mark of Ursol, and getting some serious buffs to Maul of all abilities. I'm not sure where this leaves them, to be honest. I've heard conflicting opinions from bears that I know, from it being the end of the world to it not being a big deal at all. Who really knows? I suppose we'll find out for sure when the patch finally drops. As for Warlocks, Destruction is on the stage. Apparently Blizzard finally realized that they didn't need to completely revamp a system that worked perfectly fine as it was. It is now retrofitting the Soul Shard system for Destruction to be a lot closer to the Burning Ember system that we saw back in WoD. I think the change is in a positive direction, and they've outlined a sketch of what they think it'll look like, although my Warlock sources tell me that the current balancing sounds like crap on a cracker. But hopefully there's time for tuning. Or they'll fix it the Tuesday after they drop 7.2.5, like they do with everything else. Oh, Blizzard. Always full of surprises. You cheeky devs, you. What do you guys in the comment section think about structuring your playtime around artifact knowledge research? How are you handling the new grind? What are you looking forward to for 7.2.5? What are some specs you're considering rolling to if you're re-rolling? Share your thoughts and your little optimization tricks in the comment section below. As always, friends, for more news and musings on the state of the game, as well as more interesting guides like my Unholy Death Knight Artifact Challenge guide, like and subscribe down there below the video, and ta-ta for now.